All righty. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. My name is Ingrid Hardy. I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Thousand Oaks. I'd like to welcome you all. Please note that we do have a box for your questions. We will be answering questions at the end of the webinar. We've set some time aside for that. If you need any assistance, if you're having any problems with the webinar, just please make that comment as well in the Q&A box. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our panelists for this evening. Next slide, please. Okay, we have Jennifer Harkey, who is the Program Director for the Ventura County Continuum of Care. Jennifer has worked for the County of Ventura for the past 15 years in various roles. As the Program Director, she is responsible for managing federal and state grant funding and leads several committees dedicated to addressing homelessness in Ventura County. Jennifer also volunteers to support local nonprofit organizations and has a passion for helping those in need. She holds a master's degree in public administration and a bachelor's in sociology from Cal State Northridge. Next on our panel, I'm sorry if you could please go back, Alyssa, thank you. Next on our panel, we have Rick Schrader, who serves as the president for Many Mansions. Many Mansions is a nonprofit affordable housing and service provider located in Thousand Oaks, California. They develop affordable housing rental apartments for low-income individuals and families in Ventura and Los Angeles counties. Many Mansions is the leading provider of supportive housing in Ventura County. They currently own and manage 17 affordable housing communities with 631 units of affordable housing, is currently in construction on 5 additional affordable housing apartments, and has another 6 projects in development. Rick has been the president of Many Mansions since July of 2002. He is an attorney licensed to practice law in the states of California and Minnesota. He received a law degree from UCLA School of Law and his bachelor's of business administration from University of Wisconsin. Rick has been active for many years in issues for the homeless and mentally disabled, including positions in Ventura County, on the Ventura County Mental Health Board, Ventura Housing and Homeless Coalition, and the Ventura County Community Health Improvement Collaborative. Next slide. Next, we have Step Up. And first, I'll start with Todd Lipka. He is the president and CEO of Step Up. He holds a Master's of Public Administration and a Master's of Science from USC. With 40 years in managing nonprofits, Todd Lipka is a seasoned executive. He has been the president and CEO of Step Up since 2001. And during that time, they have exponentially increased their breadth of service operation and has expanded from 1 housing project to over 25 projects. Step Up started services originally in Los Angeles and now provides services throughout California, including Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, and Monterey counties, as well as the states of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Step Up currently serves nearly 5,000 individuals annually. Aaron Criswell serves as the Chief Housing Development Officer for Step Up. He has been with this organization since 2002 and has over 30 years of experience in the community mental health field. He received an MA in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University and his BA in psychology from the University of Kentucky. Next, we have Julius Mills-Denty, who is a program manager for Step Up on Second Salinas Home Key Project. Julius has dedicated his career to serving those most in need of advocacy and support. He is passionate about community building, person-centered approaches to care and harm repair. He holds a Master of Science from the International Institute for Restorative Practices and is a licensed restorative practices trainer for the Institute. Next slide. We have Emilio Ramirez here with us this evening, who currently serves as the Oxnard Housing Director. He previously worked for the City of Riverside, where he was the Director of Office of Homeless Solutions. He is also currently a gubernatorial appointee on California's Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council. During his time, he has served in multiple roles, including community and economic development. He has extensive expertise and experience working on housing authority and homeless services, affordable housing development, home ownership down payment assistance programs, real property services, neighborhood engagement, and historic preservation. He's a graduate of UC Riverside with a BA in sociology and economics. He received his Master's of Science in Economics from Cal Poly Pomona. He also holds a Doctor of Jurisprudence from Whittier Law School and is an active member of the State Bar of California. Next on the panel, we have James Boyd, who works for the Ventura County Healthcare Agency. He leads a wide range of programs and services with the county, from healthcare for the homeless and one-stop outreach programs. And he also runs several addiction clinics, including backpack medicine. He has over 25 years of customer service, specializing and serving a variety of demographics throughout the county. Next slide. Next, we have our vulnerable population officers. Senior Deputy Danny Lopez has been employed with the Sheriff's Office for over 20 years. He has worked several assignments, including custody, patrol services in Camarillo, school resource officer, court services, civil and warrants unit, and therapeutic inmate management unit. Currently, he is assigned as one of the vulnerable population officers under the Thousand Oaks Police Department's Directed Enforcement Unit. We also have Deputy Tom Fuchs, who is a 16-year veteran of the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. He previously held assignments in custody, court services, sheriff's personnel, and patrol in both the city of Camarillo and the city of Thousand Oaks. Next slide. Denise Cortez is the founder and director of Harbor House, and this organization is dedicated to helping those in the Conejo Valley living in deep poverty and homelessness. Denise has lived in Thousand Oaks for over 30 years and has raised her family here. She was previously the area director for Lutheran Social Services, and this work led her to creating Harbor House with local funds helping local people in need. Denise has experience as a speaker, teacher, and trainer. Followed by Deshelle Harris, who currently serves as the area director for Lutheran Social Services of Southern California, and specifically in Ventura County. She has worked in the nonprofit space for more than 6 years with organizations focused on poverty-related issues. As area director, she oversees the organization's programs serving the Conejo Valley, including working with individuals experiencing homelessness, as well as those who have homes but are experiencing extreme financial burdens. In her role, she manages programs that provide food, showers, and housing assistance to those who are unhoused and financial assistance to those experiencing poverty. And lastly, we have Stephanie Sullivan, who currently serves as the program manager for Lutheran Social Services. She works closely with the case managers and local agencies and organizations to assist people experiencing homelessness in Thousand Oaks, as well as Ventura County. Prior to Lutheran Social Services, she worked at many mansions, as well as Cal Lutheran University. She is very familiar with Thousand Oaks, having been a resident for over 15 years, and deeply cares about the community. Okay. Next slide. So before I turn over the presentation to the panelists, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of what we're doing in Thousand Oaks. And I also like to start with some of the factors that contribute to homelessness. And oftentimes homelessness is characterized one-dimensionally. However, we know that homelessness affects a variety of demographics and can be attributed to a range of factors and can present itself in many forms. According to the National Coalition for the Homeless, the leading causes of homelessness include lack of affordable housing, poverty, unaffordable healthcare, domestic violence, mental illness, and addiction. Additionally, we know that locally inadequate retirement and youth transitioning out of foster care are also contributors to homelessness. Next slide. Homelessness can be categorized into 4 different categories, and factors contributing to each type experience can vary. As previously mentioned, homelessness can take many forms. Chronic homelessness is characterized by individuals, usually with a disabling condition, who have been continuously homeless for 1 year or more, or have had 4 or more episodes of homelessness in the past 3 years. Typically, these individuals are older, have complex long-term health issues, and often live on the street, in a car, park, or other location that is not suitable for human habitation. Next, we have episodic homelessness, which refers to individuals who are currently homeless and have experienced homelessness at least 3 periods in the previous year. These individuals also can suffer from some type of disabling condition, such as medical problems, mental illness, and/or substance and addiction issues. Transitional homeless is actually the most common type of homelessness and is often attributed to a recent catastrophic event or other sudden life change. And then there's hidden homelessness, which refers to individuals temporarily living with others or couch surfing without a guarantee that they will be able to stay long-term and without immediate prospects for acquiring permanent housing. This often describes people staying with friends or relatives because they lack other housing opportunities. This population is considered hidden because they do not access homeless support and services despite their need for them. For this reason, they don't typically appear in our homeless stats. Next slide. Homeless crisis response system, which also is going to be covered later in the presentation, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's basically 5 components that are laid out here on the slide: outreach, diversion and prevention, coordinated entry. And for Thousand Oaks, we have all 3 of these components in place, but there is a gap in terms of an emergency shelter and housing navigation centers, as well as permanent housing. Next slide. So with those identified gaps, the City Council had a priority from 2021 to 22 to identify and advance solutions for emergency sheltering and permanent supportive housing. And addressing homelessness has actually been a City Council priority, stated priority for the last 4 years. As a result of this priority, the city was successful in receiving $26.7 million through California's Project Home Key to convert the former Quality Inn and Suites into 77 units of permanent supportive housing. So our Step Up will be covering that project this evening. And then lastly, the City Council authorized the use of city-owned property at 1205 Lawrence Drive for a navigation center. We will be going to the City Council on December 6th to recommend a developer operator team. Next slide. These are just renderings, artist renderings real quick. So the Step Up on Second project at the former Quality Inn and Suites. Next slide. This is the interior of the unit and another exterior view of the property. Next slide. And then this is the navigation center. On the left is what the existing condition of that property looks like. And then on the right, you'll see the space that we've set aside for our modular units. Next slide. And because we don't have like a rendering of what our site would look like, just wanted to provide a concept. This is a navigation center in Santa Barbara. Next slide. This is a navigation center using the tiny home model in Reseda. And then finally, this is another location with a similar configuration of property in Baldwin Park. I believe that's my last slide. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Harkey, and I work in the County Executive Office and serve as the Program Director for the Ventura County Continuum of Care. So our continuum of care receives federal dollars from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, on an annual basis, as well as state funding through Housing and Community Development. We have a continuum of care board that operates and oversees this funding and allocates those funds to local providers. And many of the nonprofits here tonight that you'll hear from are also receiving some of those federal and state dollars to help sustain programs like rapid rehousing, street outreach, permanent supportive housing, and even some local shelter programs. Next slide. So we have a Ventura County plan to prevent and end homelessness that is located on our website, so venturacoc.org. And if you take a look at that, these are the components of our strategic plan over this next year. We are really focused on prevention. Homeless prevention is really keeping people housed with rental assistance. And if someone's facing an eviction, we have local resources where people can stay housed. There's also a diversion strategy when we are interacting with people on the streets or in shelters to make sure that they're getting connected to potential resources for housing purposes. You'll hear a little bit from our street outreach and engagement partners, as well as our rapid rehousing providers and supportive housing. So I won't go into depth on some of those, but the housing navigation piece is really essential when we are working with people who are unsheltered or temporarily in shelters here throughout the county. Next slide. So who is homeless? Every year we go out and we do a point in time count, and it's usually late January. We will be soliciting volunteers to help us survey throughout the county in late January and sending out links for help to go out and survey individuals. We also have what we call a homeless management information system, and that system is used by the county and all of our local nonprofits to help collect data and also make referrals to programs. And this is one way for us to connect people. The total number of people countywide that were counted in 2022 in January was 2,238. This gives you a breakdown of the sheltered versus unsheltered individuals. When we count those who are unsheltered, we're looking in places not meant for human habitation, and that includes places like vehicles or recreational vehicles that do not have connections. The at-risk homeless population was something that Ingrid was talking about earlier, where sometimes we aren't sure about the total number countywide. This data is collected from our local jails and hospitals, as well as our Office of Education, who are working directly with families who may be doubled up or in an unstable housing situation. Next slide. Our overall count did increase from 2020 to 2022. So over the course of the pandemic, we saw a 25% increase. And I would say that the majority of that increase were sheltered individuals. I would call attention to, we have a homeless point in time count report that is posted on our reports tab at venturacoc.org. And in the city of Thousand Oaks, we counted a total of 210 individuals experiencing homelessness, and 105 of those were sheltered, however, in temporary shelters. Some of those temporary situations would be winter shelter programs that are for overnight, only during the winter season, and also through Project Room Key, which is motel stays under the emergency response. that FEMA funding will be going away when the emergency ends. Next slide. So our current initiatives, we're looking at a crisis response system across the county. We do have crisis response beds as well as a coordinated entry system to make sure that people are getting connected to both shelter and housing. And we're prioritizing people who have the greatest need and the most vulnerable. We also have an increased funding for domestic violence, shelters, as well as transitional housing programs. Next slide. So our coordinated entry system has 34 partner agencies, and some of them will be speaking to you tonight, where they are doing the assessments with individuals and households to determine what those households are eligible for, making sure that they are getting referred to rapid rehousing or even supportive housing, and also working with those individuals on a long-term housing plan. Next slide. So our no wrong door approach is really the coordinated entry system as a whole. This slide and this information is also posted on our website. These are the organizations that partner with us and receive grant funding through both HUD and the state. Next slide. The housing inventory count, this just gives you an idea of the number of programs and units that we help fund through the continuum of care. The majority are supportive housing units. Permanent supportive housing, also known as PSH, helps to house those who are chronically homeless. So people who have been living on the streets for a year or longer and also have a disability of some sort. Some of these year-round shelters, you'll see that temporary shelters and the number of 346, those are really under the FEMA emergency response. Okay, next slide. So overall, just wanted to say, 40% of those in the Thousand Oaks area that we counted during the last count qualify for permanent supportive housing. A large number of those who are unsheltered have a great need and have voiced their request for sheltering. And so it's just speaking to the need here, and those who will be speaking to you tonight will talk a little bit more about those we work with on a regular basis. So please reach out if you have any questions. Thanks so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rick Schrader. I'm president of Many Mansions. And Many Mansions is a nonprofit affordable housing and service provider. We develop affordable rental housing, including permanent supportive housing in Thousand Oaks, Ventura County, and Los Angeles County. And you can see a picture of one of our supportive housing properties, Hillcrest Villas at night. Next slide. And this is a picture of Hillcrest Villas, 60 units, mixed supportive housing during the day. Next slide. Next slide. Many Mansions was formed right here in Thousand Oaks in 1979. In that time, we have developed 20 affordable housing communities, and we do this by either purchasing existing apartment complexes and renovating it, or building the apartments from scratch. We manage the property and we provide on-site services for that. Over this time, you can see the number of units that we have developed of affordable housing, many of which are supportive housing. And we have a number of projects currently in construction or set to be in construction next year. Next slide. Our goal is to turn something like this, as you can see on the left, into something like this, which you can see on the right. And this is a picture of our Ormond Beach Villas property, supportive housing. In Oxnard is supportive housing for veterans. And as I mentioned, of our properties, we have 9 supportive housing properties, and another 5 in construction. And that's supportive housing for individuals and families who are homeless, veterans, or transition-aged youth between ages 18 and 24 who found themselves homeless. Next slide. Many Mansions actually developed the very first supportive housing property in Thousand Oaks, and this is a picture of our Stoll House property. It opened in 1998, and this was transitional housing for families who were experiencing homelessness. They could stay at Stoll House for 1 to 2 years and then received intensive on-site services so that they can transition to permanent housing. About 10 years ago, the state of California decided that they did not want to fund transitional housing anymore, and we had to convert this property to just regular affordable housing. Next slide. And one of the reasons the state decided not to fund transitional housing is that they adopted what's known as housing first. This is a philosophy whereby there is no longer transitional housing. Rather, people, homeless individuals or families, are placed directly into permanent housing with all the accompanying services being on site. And this is a picture of our SF Village Apartments, which opened up in 2001, which again is one of the very first permanent supportive housing properties in Thousand Oaks. It is a converted motel. It used to be the Village Inn Motel. And the referrals, as Jennifer was saying, all come through the coordinated entry system. So individuals are referred to this property through the county's system. This is one of the myths, I think, of permanent supportive housing is that people do not pay rent. In fact, all of our residents, permanent supportive housing or non-permanent supportive housing, pay rent. It's just that the rent is very low and is in accordance with their income level. At SF Village, the residents pay around $550 a month in rent. Next slide. What distinguishes permanent supportive housing is those on-site services, though. What people found is that the services are essential because those that have come from the street, there is a high risk of them returning to homelessness without receiving that support. So Many Mansions provides that support and works with the county through case managers, peer support, Ventura County Behavioral Health to meet with residents and structure a service program by setting goals with them, increasing their income, strengthening their self-sufficiency, and really working to maintain their housing. We also have many workshops provided by our Many Mansion staff, but other outside groups as well, concerning financial literacy, job skills, nutrition, recovery, and coping. And we're always looking for community support for those programs. Next slide. Many people have lived at SF Village and other supportive housing sites. Again, there's a misconception about who lives there, who needs affordable housing, who is homeless, who are our residents. And over the years, we've put together books that contain some of their stories, how they became homeless, what living at Many Mansions has meant to them. And many of the stories are very moving and I think important to share. There's one story that I like that came from one of our residents at SF Village named Roger. Roger was someone who I would see every day coming to work. He was one of those homeless guys right off the freeway with his dog. And I would ask my staff, like, well, why isn't Roger living at SF Village? And they would say that we had a no pet policy and that Roger did not want to give up his dog. So we changed the policy and Roger came to live with us. And he lived with us for a number of years. And people that come to live in permanent supportive housing really do transform their lives. And this was the case with Roger. He died a couple of years later, but the residents were so taken with his dog that they kept it for many years. Next slide. Again, pictures of some of our other sites, Hillcrest Villas again, and Richmond Terrace. Both properties are mixed supportive housing with a population that some came from homelessness and others did not. Next slide. We are in construction for more permanent supportive housing. The picture on the left is our Central Terrace project in downtown Oxnard on a site that used to be a homeless encampment. That will be 87 units of supportive housing. And on the right is our Rancho Sierra project on county-owned land on Lewis Road. And this will be 50 units of supportive housing for homeless seniors, one of our fastest growing homeless populations. Last slide. On behalf of Many Mansions, I do want to thank the City of Thousand Oaks for giving this opportunity and hosting this forum. And I'd be happy to answer any questions tonight or in the future. So thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Criswell. I'm the Chief Housing Development Officer for Step Up. And we've been an organization serving those with mental health challenges and people who are unhoused since 1984. And we're really excited to partner with the City of Thousand Oaks and County Ventura to do the Step Up in Thousand Oaks housing project. Next slide, please. So we were awarded the Thousand Oaks project through the state Project Home Key funding round 2. And the first step is to take that funding and acquire the property and then start the renovations. So this is converting a motel that's been operating as a motel into permanent supportive housing. And typically that involves adding a kitchenette to each unit and as well as some other improvements across the property. Our goal is to develop this property to look like an apartment building, which is what it will be and how it will operate. Next slide. So this is the motel as it sits. It's in pretty decent condition. And so our job is to come in and rehab the units as discussed, but also make the environment as nice as possible for the tenants that will be moving in to the project. And we'll end up with 77 units for tenants to live in, and we will have one live-in resident manager. So we will have an employee that lives on site and assists with all property management functions. Next slide. So these are some of the plans that we'll be doing. We'll be getting rid of the existing swimming pool and replace it with some landscaping and amenities. We'll have new gates and fencing around the project, repave the parking lot. We'll be building out our supportive services offices as well as our property management office and changing the signage. You know, again, we want to demonstrate to the community that this is going to be a different functioning, operating apartment building and no longer a motel. Next slide. So new paint, new sign. This is just a view from the street, a rendering of what we anticipate it will look like. We're currently in the permitting phase to get the permits squared away so we can start construction as soon as possible. Next slide. View of the courtyard where the pool will be deleted, and we'll add some of the amenities there. You know, our goal is to make this a community. So we want to build the opportunities for people to build relationships that live there, just like any apartment building where people will work together, live together, and be able to enhance each other's lives. Next slide. This is a typical unit. You can see it has all the basics that an individual will need. We build out our units so that they are turnkey and ready for move-in. We fully furnish each unit and we put welcome home kits in place. So everything somebody needs is there on the day that they step through the door. And many of the folks that we serve don't have much beyond maybe the clothes that they carry. So it's important for us to have the home ready to be lived in. And then our services will help those folks continue to build on those life skills of getting what they need to maintain the unit. Next slide, please. So once it's ready, we will start our lease up process, and we'll receive our referrals from the coordinated entry system. This project will target both chronically homeless and homeless individuals in Thousand Oaks with a local preference, because our intention is as much as possible to serve those folks that are right there in the community that are unhoused and in need. We have a housing application, and we will assist each individual with gathering all the documents necessary in order to qualify and move into the project. And once we have everything in place, they will sign a lease and they will receive their key, and then they will have their new home. And it's important to note that, you know, everyone that lives there has all the same tenant rights as any person renting an apartment in California. And it's as much as possible, our goal is to normalize the housing so that we're helping people re-enter and reintegrate into the community. Next slide. Okay, so I'll pass this on to Julius, our program manager of services.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Can you see me okay? Yeah, so I'm the program manager at our Salinas Home Key site. So I hope these next few slides give you a snapshot into how our services look like at a Home Key site. And we can go to the next slide and I'll continue from there. It's important to understand that we have 5 core values, and all the work that we do emerges from these core values. What we do is rooted in these 5 values of hope, wellness, voice and choice, respect, and collaborative relationships. We truly believe that people can make incredible changes in their life with the right kind of support, that right kind of support being a collaborative process that exists in the community and with their immediate case manager and the larger case management team. We establish service plans and prioritize individual goal setting with our tenants. Their voice is front and center in all of the service planning we do. We believe that in order for someone to change, they have to voice their reasons for doing so. So we try to draw those reasons out with the work that we do with them. We also believe that housing is very foundational for anybody to make changes in their life who are coming off the streets or who have been chronically homeless. It allows them to have a place where they can go rest. It creates the foundation for thinking about their life differently, and it allows them to structure their life in a way that they couldn't before they received that support. We can go to the next slide. Here's a few things that we do. So this takes sort of the theoretical stuff that I was just sharing and makes it practical. We have coordinated case management. So we also work with county mental health providers and try to establish coordinated service plans with them that are all tailored to individualized goals. That sounds fancy, but to make it simple, we are all working on our clients' behalf to make sure they maintain their housing and actually do what they want to do in their life. Some of those things are returning to work. A few of our folks may obtain full-time employment in the community, and housing may be the thing that they were missing and that didn't allow them to do that prior to coming to Step Up. We provide different life skills groups, community connection groups, healthy relationships groups, substance use recovery oriented groups to help people navigate some of their own recovery challenges and obstacles. We like to do field trips. We'll bring people who will volunteer yoga services to us. We really work hard during the holidays to make it a community spirited place to be. And then the thing I'm most proud of is our tenant advisory committee. That's where our Step Up residents come to the table and actually voice the things that they would like to see change on our property. They're able to talk about the things they're satisfied with and really drive change. Their voice is front and center, as I indicated before, in making certain things happen on the property. We use our restorative circles to build those connections. We work through our obstacles together. We actually have had different people from the community come to our property, whether it's the fire chief, the chief of police, different social services providers, or even our neighbors at the Hampton Inn in Salinas, come and visit and spend time with our residents and engage in different storytelling opportunities to decrease the stigma and sort of support that integration piece that is so essential. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. So we can go to that. Thank you. 3 primary goals. This is how I like to think of it. We want people to stay housed. That's the #1 goal. And our property management division and our supportive services division work together in making that happen. We have a progressive lease enforcement policy that is really aimed at helping people stay housed. And that also allows the services team to work through the challenges that tenants are facing to maintain their housing as well. We want to foster growth and change. We believe that each individual has different important goals in their life, different things that are important to them in the moment, whether that's reuniting with family members that they haven't spoken to for a while, getting a job, or just practicing different housekeeping routines that they're not familiar with or that they didn't have to necessarily implement when they were living on the streets. And then the third thing is community integration, which I touched on the last slide. It's really important for us to work with our tenants on getting back into the community, and we want to welcome the community to our sites and create opportunities for folks, while respecting our tenants' confidentiality, to engage and to work with us and not kind of come across as a siloed community. That's something that's worked well at our Salinas site, to be open-ended, welcoming, and sort of adopt that spirit of collaborative relationships in our work with the community as well. A lot of our tenants have gone out into the community and volunteered their services to help people who are still on the streets. Many of our folks have gone back to work. And many of our folks have actually formed relationships with our neighboring businesses, which has helped others view our project differently than they may have before we got there. So I appreciate your time, and I hope that gives you a little preview of what some support might look like on a regular basis at a step-up site.
Thank you, Julius. Before we move on to our next presenter, I just wanted to provide everyone with a reminder. If you have any questions, please drop your questions in the Q&A box, and we will have the questions answered at the end of tonight's webinar. And then secondly, I just want to say before Emilio speaks here that as I stated at the beginning of the webinar, we staff are recommending a developer operator team for our navigation center at the December 6th City Council meeting. So because we have not stated publicly who that team is, I have asked Emilio Ramirez, who has extensive experience and background in Oxnard and throughout the state, to talk about affordable housing and navigation centers. So with that, I will turn the presentation over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ingrid. Melissa, can I share my PowerPoint? This one is off.
Sure, let me make sure you should have a authority. Go ahead and try.
No, I don't have the authority.
Try now.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Thank you. So hi, everybody. My name is Emilio. Director of Housing for the City of Oxnard. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in Oxnard and kind of the things that we are pursuing. I apologize in advance. I go through these slides fairly quickly. I'm just trying to kind of give you an idea as to what we're doing. Starting with the idea as to why affordable housing is important. In my opinion, because it has the power to balance a community, because it has the power to eliminate poverty, because poverty is not only about the income of a person, but also the comfort of their living. So I believe that a person that lives in an poor environment is going to maintain that poverty despite the recurrent income. So we are working on trying to invest in our neighborhoods. Okay, how do I do that? So housing is affordable if a family can pay the cost of that housing and still buy food and still pay for healthcare, diapers, and other essentials without having to sacrifice the condition of the housing that they live in. It doesn't mean that it's cheap housing like you see on screen. If this is all that you can afford, it's not really affordable housing, because without this, you remain hungry. So our desire is to invest for the future that we see, because there is a significant amount of diversity within the community, but they're all at a certain part of their life expecting to be happy and be ambitious. There's also a lot more commonality between the people that are ethnically diverse versus diverse in income. There's a greater similarity between those that are Mexican and Black versus those that are rich and poor. They think differently. And our challenge is to try to make that neighborhood safe in a way that produces affordable housing for everyone, such that they can live there and still have a family environment in a way that transitions the neighborhood from the bottom to the top. This is actually a natural transition of a neighborhood from the bottom to the top, because we are looking to make sure that the people that are otherwise homeless have an opportunity to live. So we're building permanent supportive housing. This is one that is in Long Beach. It's a permanent supportive housing that is mixed with a vocational school, a performing arts school. And that ambition, that desire to create this opportunity for the people that live there is the thing that we're after. I think all of us, but definitely here in Oxnard. And we're trying to act quickly, because this is what we're seeing in our community. This is what everyone else on the screen has already shared with you, that they're looking to transition from this environment in a neighborhood to something better. So this is the project that we're working on in Oxnard. This is a mixed-use development. Ground floor is a navigation center, 110-bed shelter, supportive services, case management. The county, the operator, on top of which is 56 units of permanent supportive housing. This is in downtown Oxnard on city-owned property. Most city-owned property has been sold and is actively under construction. This is the site that we're looking at. As you can see, it is directly across the street from City Hall, the service center and the fire station, the library. It is an intentional act of investing in a neighborhood in a way that provides a quality build, a quality design, and a opportunity for the people that are poor that live in the neighborhood to remain in the neighborhood and succeed. This is a description of the supportive services that we are requiring to be on site. It's a low barrier access shelter, a housing first model for the housing that is on site, harm reduction, client centered. We require that they participate in pathways to home. We require that everybody participate in the homeless management information system that Jennifer mentioned earlier, that they be connected to other services, that they provide a personalized housing plan, that they are able to expand in the counseling services and the individualized case plan that they need, whether that's sobriety, whether that's vocational reentry, education. They help them with applications to our otherwise fairly bureaucratic process in Section 8 and everything that is needed. It's a description of the budget. As I mentioned, it is a housing first unit. It does provide supportive services both in the housing and in the shelter. The shelter is providing 110 beds. The total development is $34 million. And I anticipate that this is part of the questions that is asked earlier. I say that because it was part of what was asked here. Why is it so expensive? It's expensive because it's expensive to build housing, but also because we don't want to cheapen the affordable housing. Just because it's housing provided to people that are homeless doesn't mean that they don't get a good opportunity to live in a quality environment. So we're after providing that quality environment, not only for the benefit of the people that live there, but also for the benefit of the people that live around that area. The shelter is being managed by a group called Mercy House. They currently operate the shelter that's the temporary shelter, and they're moving to this new place. Going to provide all the services that you see on the screen, plus everything else that I just mentioned. before. We do this in a housing first environment. As mentioned earlier, the state has gone to this environment, and so is the city of Oxnard. We want to make sure that we provide a real opportunity for the case management and the supportive services to attach and to provide long-term stability in the housing first. Not to mention that if we don't move to a housing first environment, we're not going to succeed in getting additional funding from the state or from HUD, and we want that. So I'm happy to answer any questions as you may have, either about the project that we're working on, our own home key project, or things that are happening in the neighborhood in Oxnard. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Deputy Tom Fuchs, and I'm here with my partner, Senior Deputy Danny Lopez. We are the two vulnerable population officers out of the Thousand Oaks Station. Next slide, please. The City of Thousand Oaks funds a full-time deputy and a full-time senior deputy position. Danny and I work under the direction of the Thousand Oaks Directed Enforcement Unit, which is an 8 deputy team that tackles quality of life issues within the City of Thousand Oaks. Next slide, please. We primarily focus on individuals who are experiencing homelessness. We identify homeless individuals that may be suffering from mental health issues, substance abuse, the elderly, veterans, those with disabilities, and connect them to services that are tailored to fit their needs. We enforce the state laws, the local city ordinances that affect the quality of life of Thousand Oaks residents and the businesses. And we also organize cleanup operations of encampments that are either illegal or have become a public health hazard. Next slide, please. As Jennifer previously stated, homelessness is defined as sleeping in a place not meant for human habitation. And the definition of at risk of homelessness is those that are looking at losing housing within the next 21 days. Next slide. And here in Thousand Oaks, we focus on a four-pronged approach that Senior Deputy Lopez is going to go into a little more detail about here.
So in Thousand Oaks, we focus a lot of our attention on outreach, enforcement, cleanup, and education. Next slide. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail on each of these. So with our outreach, we focus primarily on our homeless individuals. A lot of them do have behavioral health issues. So every Tuesday, we do work with a behavioral health specialist from the County of Ventura Behavioral Health Agency. We also make sure that we go out to the various locations where our homeless individuals are staying and conduct follow-up appointments there. It listed on there, we have our organizations that we work with. We work with Ventura County Human Services Agency, our homeless services, One Stop Backpack Medicine, which is James Boyd and his crew, Lutheran Social Services, which is Michelle and her crew. Harbor, if you go to the next slide, please. We work with Harbor House, Denise Cortez, Mercy House is Nina out of Ventura, and then Salvation Army and Veteran Services groups. Next slide, please. So a lot of people ask what our enforcement is. We enforce all laws, including our public nuisance offenses. That's public intoxication, drinking in public, urinating or defecating in public, or any public nudity, camping on public or private property, illegal drug usage, illegal or reckless fires. We have a zero tolerance when it comes to reckless fires, and we do enforce those periodically. Also, we have any trespass violations after we've given notice to those individuals. Next slide. For the cleanup efforts, we work with our local businesses and private property owners, as well as the City of Thousand Oaks, to conduct our cleanup efforts. Prior to cleaning up on our public lands, we do post with 72-hour notices, and that's to give the individual a notice to remove their property that is abandoned, or to vacate the property if it is private property or city-owned property that requires them to move. The City of Thousand Oaks will come out. They store that property. Any items that are soiled, biohazardous, or they're obvious trash, those will be disposed of. We also store the property with our city yard, and that's stored for 90 days. The person's given a receipt that will provide them with a contact and storage location of that property. Next slide. When it comes to education, this is kind of one of those situations where we'll go out to the various businesses, any citizen who requests to speak with us, so we can let them know what we do in terms of how we address homelessness and any problems related to homeless issues. Next slide. So one of our more difficult situations that we come across is people asking us why we don't enforce certain violations. And Martin versus Boise, the city of Boise, Idaho, this was a December 16th case in 2019 that came out through the Ninth Circuit Court. And pretty much what it said is that the cities can't enforce camping or disorderly conduct issues when that person doesn't have access to alternative shelters. So if there's no option of sleeping indoors, the government cannot criminalize people who are homeless for sleeping outdoors or on public property. So that's something we've run into quite often. Also, the shelter must be appropriate for the individual. Next slide. Next, we have Johnson versus City of Grants Pass. This is fairly new, and pretty much what it did is it upheld the Martin versus Boise decision. I'll move to the next slide. And I'll let Tom go over our community interdiction court.
Community Interdiction Court is a collaboration with the District Attorney's Office, the Public Defender's Office, the City Attorney's Office, along with some of the social service groups you see on the screen. When an individual that is homeless, maybe suffering from mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and they have a case that is moving forward in the court system, we get together every other week and we discuss these cases and try to come up with an alternative solution other than jail. A lot of these people benefit from programs. They'll benefit from a lot of alternatives that are unconventional, and it's a progressive new way of looking at the court system, and it's something that we've had a lot of success with, and we're proud to be really moving forward with this community interdiction court and the positive outcomes that we've seen from it. You can just continue to the next slide. We encourage anybody to feel free to contact us either by phone or email if they have any questions or concerns. Danny and I both are extremely responsive, and email is probably the best approach, as we check those on our days off. We check those in the evenings, but we will get back to you and address your concerns. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Deshelle Harris and Stephanie Sullivan with Lutheran Social Services.
Hello, Melissa. I don't know if we need to switch the video over.
This is the PowerPoint I have.
Yeah, great. I just wanted to make sure that Deshelle and I were visible on the video.
I believe it just shows the PowerPoint,
just
but
shows the
everyone can
PowerPoint.
hear you.
It won't
Okay,
show
great.
your face. You can hear it. We can hear you though.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. Apologies. So I'm Stephanie Sullivan. I'm going to be presenting with Deshelle Harris. Wanted to just give a little bit of insight into Lutheran Social Services. We've been in the area for a number of years. As you can tell, there's been a previous area director, Denise Cortez, who's now at Harbor House. If you move to the next slide, please. Some of the services that we provide in the area are, as you can see here, our drop-in center, which is open 4 days per week. We offer hot meals, sack lunches, emergency food pantry, shower, toiletries, and laundry, sleeping bags, and additional items to the folks who are unhoused in our city. About 85% of the homeless clients that are served are Thousand Oaks residents. So a majority of the people that we serve in the drop-in center are people who have been living in Thousand Oaks consistently for either a number of years or were housed previously and then found themselves in a situation where they were homeless. If I can go back to the previous slide. Thank you. We also have our outreach programs that our outreach case managers assist clients on. They have an ongoing case management list to provide connections to those who are unhoused. So as Jennifer Harkey mentioned earlier, providing referrals to other programs that might be suitable for them, and also trying to get them connected to housing. We also have rental assistance for those who are unhoused or at risk of becoming homeless, through our emergency assistance program. And then we also have a rapid rehousing program that allows those who are experiencing homelessness to find housing and the financial assistance in order to make that happen. And we also have a non-congregate shelter. This shelter is a motel for respite. So those who are coming from a medical procedure or recovering. There's also for somebody who's transitioning from homelessness to being housed. And then during the winter months, we do have a program that Deshelle will be speaking more about regarding our shelter programs for those who are our case managed clients and unhoused individuals who are impacted by COVID. So this is just a snapshot of the services that we provide. Next slide. So we do collaborate with a number of different agencies. If you can move to the next slide, please. Because collaboration is very important. We do rely heavily on our community members, resources, and organizations such as Healthcare for the Homeless. So we coordinate consistently with Whole Person Care. They work with a number of clients to provide assistance for medical connections and Ventura County Behavioral Health. There's also One Stop, which provides additional support for showers and things that maybe are outside of the area. And Backpack Medicine. So our case managers, as well as others, will go out to encampments to meet with people and discuss their needs and the goals that they're working towards. There's also the Continuum of Care, which Jennifer spoke to. We are one of those partner agencies that is part of the Homeless Management Information System, and we refer clients on pathways to home to other services as needed. And we also work with Project Room Key. So these are all county resources that we currently assist with. I'm going to pass it off to Deshelle.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Deshelle. Some other resources that we do rely heavily on and I really appreciate are from the city of Thousand Oaks. So after COVID hit, we used to have a seasonal shelter with rotating shelters, but once COVID hit, that shelter program became no longer. So the city of Thousand Oaks stepped in and they funded non-congregate shelter in 2020 and 2022. Really what that looks like is we would place our clients who were experiencing homelessness, we'd place them in a local motel and then provide case management services from there. Another resource paid for by the city is our drop-in center, so our shower, sack lunches, things like that. And hopefully we, again, hope for the navigation center on Lawrence. One thing I really want to mention is just how pivotal the non-congregate shelter program has been. So if you are experiencing homelessness, you're moving your belongings from place to place, you're worried about finding a safe place to sleep, and then you're also staying up all night because you can't find that place, or you're exposed to the rain, cold, fire conditions, things like that. And you're just focused on surviving, which is why it has been a major step in serving clients with the motel shelter program, because now there's that stability, there's that safety, and clients are able to focus more on their goals or their housing needs. Next slide, please. So some other organizations that we work with closely, we do rely on a lot of nonprofits in the area. There are those who are involved or part of the continuum of care, but there are also individual organizations that are not. So we rely heavily on local churches. We receive a lot of food donations. They help, like with our rapid rehousing program, they may provide housing kits. Society of St. Vincent de Paul, which is connected to the Catholic Church. So they often help with emergency assistance needs, like financial assistance for rental, things like that. Community Conscience, we work closely with many mansions. We refer people to Mercy House. And then most recently, especially, is the Area Housing Authority of Ventura County for Section 8 vouchers. So another resource we really rely on is just community member buy-in. So when it comes to housing the unhoused, we really require or need the support and the encouragement of those people living in the community. A lot of those we work with are on fixed incomes for various reasons, and there's no way that their wage will ever increase, right? They're either at minimum wage, and that will never meet the cost of living, or they're in retirement or receiving Social Security. So their only option is affordable housing. And that's why we really ask and really hope that community members promote transitional and affordable housing. Next slide. So next I want to talk about Fariba. So she was a client of ours for about 5 years. So Fariba was just like anyone else, right? Average person. She's someone you might meet at the supermarket or checkout line. You know, she's really friendly. Might have a conversation with you about Agatha Christie in the library. But some unfortunate circumstances occurred, circumstances that were outside of her control, and she ended up homeless and on the street. So where we start, and this is also a very good example of how all of our community resources and organizations are working together. So Lutheran Social Services, we presented Fariba to the Coordinated Entry Systems Pathways to Home in 2019. And then in 2020, when Project Room K came about through the county, she was placed there by Ventura County Behavioral Health. And then around 2021, after there was a housing development that would just recently been built, and we were able to connect her from the CES Pathways to Home to an apartment complex built by the Area Housing Authority. So if there are any questions, please feel free to shoot them my way. Thank you for listening. Yeah.
Okay, so finally, we will wrap up next with Denise Cortez from Harbor House, followed by James Boyd with Ventura Health Care Agency. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Denise Cortez, and I'm the director of Harbor House here in Thousand Oaks. Our mission statement says that Harbor House hopes to contribute to the building of a just community where all people are included. We see all human beings as worthy of our time and all of our efforts. We offer referrals, resources, case management, and a hand up for all those who are struggling. It is our goal to help all people in our community to find hope, gainful employment, affordable housing, and a sense of personal well-being. Harbor House was founded in 2018 in an effort to provide social services to local residents in our community. those who find themselves in need of rental assistance, homeless services, case management, the need to get help with housing. We provide a meal every day, 365 days a year. And we do that with the help and support of over 400 volunteers. We provide laundry services, showers. We serve people living in poverty who need assistance navigating very difficult systems. In doing that, we collaborate with the city of Thousand Oaks, the county of Ventura, other nonprofits, and of course, our local law enforcement. The bulk of our donations come from local houses of faith in our community. So we're extremely grateful to them for partnering with us. And in our effort to battle homelessness, Harbor House believes that keeping housed people in their homes is the most important service that we provide. To date, in 2022, we have provided $167,000 in rental assistance to those who are struggling in this very difficult economy. This enabled us to keep 155 households and 242 individuals in their homes. Many of those were children. The fastest growing demographic of newly homeless, sadly, is our older folks, our elderly people living on minimum Social Security, struggling to keep a home that they can no longer afford in a community that's increasingly unaffordable for average people. It is said that 6 or 7 out of every 10 unhoused people aged out of foster care. In my experience, these young people who reached the age of 18 prior to 2012 often aged out directly into homelessness. And in response to this, the staff here at Harbor House heard the words of our beloved and famous Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who said that there comes a point in life when we need to stop dragging people out of the river. We need to go upstream and we need to find out why they're falling in. We did that, and we, with the support and the donations of so many people in our community, we created a transitional living house for young men aging out of foster care. These are young men who would otherwise be homeless, and all of them were homeless when we met them. We currently have 6 young men living in the house. And we're not just providing a bed or a roof over their heads. We tell them that we're providing a new way of life, a new way of looking at life. All of the boys are currently gainfully employed. They're attending school. They're learning how to read great books and write great resumes. Every one of them is seeing a therapist so that they can heal from all the trauma that was their childhood. Every boy is growing each day. Thank you very much. And thank you to the city and the county for doing this tonight, because this is so important. And I want to thank everyone who came online to pay attention to this and learn from this, because we as a community can do so much more than any of us can do alone.
Great, thank you, Denise. We will wrap up with James.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say what an amazing group of folks that we have here that are doing amazing work, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. So what we do for the county, I run backpack medicine. Not only do I run backpack medicine, but I run the One Stop program. And what we do in backpack medicine is we collaborate with a lot of our social service providers throughout the county. If we're talking particularly with Thousand Oaks, we work with Lutheran Social Services and Harbor House, and the local law enforcement. That would be Tom and Danny. And so we go out to the river bottoms and parks and places like that and talk to folks and try to get them medical attention and social service needs. The biggest issue we try to figure out is a lot of addiction. So we face a lot of addiction out there, and we try to get those folks into treatment. We try to start there while we're out there on the in the river bottom or on the street corner, and we try to get those folks the assistance they need then. I don't have a lot, I think mostly everyone covered so much in here as far as what we do, but the goal is to end homelessness. And for us, being a part of that is amazing, and I thank everyone for their time.
Great, thank you so much, James. Okay, so now we'll move into the Q&A portion of tonight's webinar. And the first question we have, I'm going to throw to Jen Harkey. And the question is, does ongoing drug addiction affect housing qualification?
Thanks for the question. So our housing first strategy is that we offer housing and support to provide a stable environment with wraparound services in a low barrier model, right? So someone may be dealing with an addiction, a mental health issue, or dual diagnosis, and needs that stability in order to become stable and have that treatment provided with the healthcare, behavioral health, any other basic needs that someone may need. And so that is not a barrier, right? We're taking people in as they are and offering that support with the services on site.
Great, thank you, Jen. Aaron, Aaron or Rick, I don't know if you guys want to mention how you kind of work with that in real time with your supportive, Rick?
Yeah, I can address that. I would say that it is not a barrier. All of our housing is drug-free housing, though. You cannot use drugs on site. But at the same time, our supportive services, our case managers, are working with those residents to try to address those addictions, if there are any, and working with outside agencies. But the housing itself, there are no drug usage on site.
Great, thank you, Rick. Okay, the next question we have is, are the step-up units that are being converted for single, are they being converted for single individuals, seniors, disabled families, or all? Aaron?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, these units are going to be available to adults of any age. They are single units, so HUD has allowances for 2 people to share a single apartment. So these could serve individuals, they could serve single parents, they could serve couples. It just depends on the structure of the household.
Great, thank you. Next question is for Deputy Fuchs. Where did all of the people go who lived off Highway 23 at Jan's, the Caltrans property?
At the time the cleanup began, I think there was about 8 people left in the encampment. Two of them were offered housing. They refused and they moved on their own. A few of them did move to other unlawful encampments within the city, and Danny and I are currently addressing those encampments with the state and the county and trying to find some adequate solutions. But they are still within the city limits, and it's a continuing problem. And Danny and I are real hopeful that these projects the city has coming online is going to alleviate some of those issues for us.
Great, thank you. The next question we have is, what is the plan for emergency housing? I will briefly address that, and then I'll turn it back over to LSS and Harbor House, who also provide emergency housing. So the Navigation Center is an emergency shelter. And I just want to make it clear to everyone on tonight's call that it's not a drop-in shelter. It's you don't line up and hope that you get a bed, and then when the next day starts, you're kicked out and you have to find somewhere to go during the day. The Navigation Center is emergency or temporary housing with on-site supportive services with the goal of providing a pathway to permanent housing. Deshelle, I see that you're unmuted. Would you like to address that question as well?
Yes, ultimately, I mean, we do provide non-congregate shelter, but it's only temporary. It's not year round. Essentially, we really rely on the housing resources around us that we can refer to. But no matter how much funding we have or how much we collaborate with other organizations, if there's no place to put individuals, then all of our efforts are kind of to no avail. That's why it's really important for things like the navigation center, the upcoming PSH unit, for us to navigate or help refer clients to those housing services.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, how does someone find the navigation center? How do they get there? Is it on a bus route? And I'd like to pitch this question to Jen Harkey, if she could just talk about the referral system through the county's coordinated entry system.
Yeah, thanks, Ingrid. So really through the coordinated entry system, it's a no wrong door approach. So any of the providers you heard from tonight, Lutheran Social Services, Harbor House, Backpack Medicine Team, the Human Services Agency, Behavioral Health, and there's numerous others, including Interface and 211, can help to assess someone and screen them and make a referral directly to the navigation center. Also our law enforcement partners, the boots on the ground, right? The street outreach teams, those who are interacting with people on the streets can also make direct referrals.
Great, thank you. And I'd just like to add on to that response that for our navigation center, there will be a local preference in place, which is why we have the importance of working through a local nonprofit organizations. We are also setting aside a minimum number of beds for law enforcement so that they have those as a tool. What housing options are available for individuals with disabilities? Is there anyone that would like to address that on our panel?
I could address that, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Well, I can speak to our project. Step Up specializes in serving individuals who are suffering from mental illness and that type of disability, as well as we will be upgrading several of the units for ADA compatibility for both mobility, oral and visual disabilities. So we certainly welcome anyone with a disability in our projects.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. One of the concerns of both supportive housing and sheltering is safety. Do projects similar to the planned units on Lawrence Drive typically increase crime in the local neighborhood? Deputy Fuchs, would you like to address that question?
Sure. This is obviously something new that we're trying here in the city, but we have neighboring cities that have had a successful implementation of shelters. Danny and I contacted the Ventura Police Department, their crime analysis unit, and had them run some rough numbers for us on calls for service in relations to their shelters. And we found that their highest call volume was half of that of Home Depot here in town. So you're having half the amount of calls for service that just a regular commercial store is generating, which was surprising, but also very reassuring for these projects moving forward. So we're not anticipating any spikes in crime or any spikes in illegal activity. Looking at VPD, they actually saw a decrease in the areas where their shelters are.
Great, thank you. Next question. Do all the units you have spoken of tonight at the Quality Inn and the proposed tiny home Lawrence site require rent? If so, how much is the rent? I will address the navigation center and then throw it over to Aaron on the rent for the Step Up project. For the navigation center, there is no rent required.
Yes, and for permanent supportive housing, typically we are able to acquire HUD vouchers But where in the case of Home Key, the vouchers aren't necessarily going to be there at the start of the project, but we still mirror the same process. So people would be responsible for paying 30% of their income for rent.
Great, thank you. Okay, next, what percentage of place individuals experience recidivism back to homelessness? Do service providers continue to address these people? Who from our service provider team would like to address that? Aaron, Rick, Todd Lipka, Jen?
Ingrid, I could speak to just the overall county housing retention is what we call it. So once someone is placed in housing, we want to make sure that they have the case management and support to help retain that housing. And our goal overall is less than 5%. And we're currently at a 2% returns to homelessness rate, which is really impressive and speaks to the case management and the success of projects like Mini Mansions, Step Up, Mercy House, and what they all do with supportive housing.
Great, thank you. And this next question, I believe, was answered already in terms of housing first and whether or not drug addiction is a barrier to housing. The question is the housing offered to chronic drug and alcohol, is housing offered to chronic drug and alcohol abusers? Seems to me that the housing should be offered to people who are trying to better themselves. Is there anyone that would like to provide additional commentary related to this?
I'm happy to, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things that we see is when what we try to do in operating as a service agency is trauma-informed care. So a lot of the clients that we work with might have a substance use disorder, which is a mental health issue. And so we do try and connect folks to services such as behavioral health, whole person care, if that's something that they are working towards in terms of, resolving some of those issues. But because we have a housing first approach, we do find it necessary that before somebody can focus on those things, that they can have housing so that they are not penalized, or it's not a punitive approach to housing. We do try to maintain that low barrier of entry that a lot of us have talked about tonight, because you can't resolve some of those other issues without a stable place to live. So that's an important first step.
Great, thank you so
Can
much.
I add to that, Ingrid?
Of course, Rick, thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with Stephanie that it is a low barrier and that we are there. All of our residents that come to us want to improve their lives, and we try to work with them and give them every opportunity to do that. I do want to stress, though, that we do expect a lot of all of our residents, and if they do engage in conduct that's detrimental to their co-residents or to the property or to the community, we do evict people. So it is important to know that we, just because it's permanent supportive housing, that's low barrier housing, that somehow we don't expect those that come to us to be good residents. And we do expect that, and we do hold them to that standard.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, that is it for the questions tonight. We thank all of you for participating in this webinar. By participating in the webinar, you've been added to an email list. So as we have periodic updates related to our efforts on homelessness, you will receive those. Thanks again, and please have a good night.